of or transmitting child pornography. We obtain a search warrant. Then we have to go to that house, serve the search warrant, review the evidence that's there, ultimately seize the devices, and do a forensic investigation. So you'll hear me talk about charges that are filed today as a result of this investigation, but what you won't hear is the additional charges that will be filed in the coming weeks and months as we complete the forensic investigations, which are incredibly laborious. So every one of the folks that we deal with here today, every one of them, we have seized computers, and those will be investigated by our folks. But to start off, our first poster child is Saul Pastor Biblioni. He works for the sheriff's office, or did work for the sheriff's office, in animal control as a civilian animal control officer. He passed polygraphs and psychologicals and backgrounds, and at one time even applied to work as a civilian detective in our child victims investigation unit. He wasn't chosen, not because of any criminal conduct we saw, but because he was not the best candidate of choice at the time. We've charged him with 3 counts of possession of child pornography. We anticipate there will be add-on charges. We see from the child porn that he was involved with that he preferred little boys and little girls that were 5 years old, in the 5-year age range. And he admitted to us that he was downloading and possessing child pornography. We're outraged. But it goes without saying, as you know today, when someone in this organization does something that's against the law, we lock them up, put them in jail, and promptly fire them, and that's exactly what we did. He is not representative of the men and women of the sheriff's office. He obviously lost any opportunity ever to be associated with law enforcement at all. To talk about the outrage that we have for him and his conduct is impossible, because there aren't sufficient words that we can publish in a newspaper or speak on camera. But I have bad-mouthed him with every adjective I know outside of this press conference. If y'all think of any words I can use, let me know that adequately talk about that. Well, we're equally upset about the number 2 person we have. This person is Juan Berrios. He's a first-grade teacher at Palmetto Elementary School out in Poinciana. He began teaching in 1974. He's taught children for 42 years. He began his career in Puerto Rico, then he moved to Massachusetts, and he has been with the Polk School District for the last 7 years. He confessed. He talked to us, and what he told us was gut-wrenching. He said that he doesn't believe the children are victims. He says because they're not forced to do this. And then he said, and they seem to enjoy it. And he suspects that a lot of times they're paid for it. Are you kidding me? You really said that? And what's interesting is the children that he preferred were as young as 6 to 8 months old. We saw babies, infants in diapers, that were being sexually abused, that he was in possession of the child pornography. He preferred both male and female children. He had 35 photos and videos, and some of them were between 3 and 6 years of age. We are doing further forensics on his computer as well. It is important, and I highlight, our investigation up to this point, which has been exhaustive up to this point, but it's not complete, does not reveal any indication that any of the students that he's taught have been abused, and we have no indication that any of the child porn he possesses is of his students. Now, we say as of this point because the investigation is not complete. And ironically, when we checked with the superintendent, that he never ever received any discipline at work. He did a good job as a teacher. But before I go on with my postcards here, let me stop and turn this over to our superintendent.
Thank you, Sheriff. Today I'm angry. It's very disgusting that I have to stand here to discuss the reprehensible actions of a man who we honored his trust. We value him to come in to teach our children. And after that, this is what we come out to be. We come out to see that there are charges of child pornography. It's disgusting. As a mother and as a teacher, as an administrator, as a community member, we are held to protect and make sure all of our children are safe, to make sure we provide an environment where there's the love of learning and they're safe in that environment. This disgusts me. By no means will we allow this to continue in our school system. By no means. Mr. Berrios does not represent the teachers here that dedicate their lives every single day to the students in Polk County Public Schools. He does not represent us. He is no longer one of us because of his actions today. We have dedicated staff of 13,000 that come to work each and every day to focus on our mission. Our mission to educate over 100,000 children. That's our mission, to impart the love of learning, to educate them, to shape their lives so that they become better citizens. We will not tolerate this type of behavior anymore in the Polk County Public School System. It will not be tolerated. It must stop, and we're going to continue to stop it so that we afford our children the opportunity to receive an education that their parents send them to school to receive each and every day. We will not tolerate it in Polk County Public Schools.
As soon as we finish with our cards here, then we will be glad to take any questions you have. Well, if an animal control officer that serves the community and a school teacher that serves the community is not reprehensible enough, now we have an electrical engineer. An electrical engineer that before retirement worked for Lockheed Martin and General Electric. Robert Willis was also reported that while he was employed, had a top secret clearance. And yet at the same time, we find out that he now engages in child pornography. But let me suggest this to you. You don't wake up in this chapter of your life, put your feet on the floor one morning and stretch and say, I think I'll go to the computer and download child porn for the first time. This is behaviors indicative of past conduct, although the evidence for that is still under investigation with the computers. Here's what we found out. He had multiple computers, 18 of them. He's charged right now with 36 counts of promotion of child pornography, 2 counts of possession of child pornography, and part of that is bestiality between children and animals. He prefers children 7 to 10 years of age. We talked to his wife. He's married. He lives in an affluent home, an affluent lifestyle, and his wife was absolutely, totally shocked. I truly think that her shock would have been less had he been killed in a car crash. She had no idea this was occurring, but it was a life he lived. He also was in the Air Force, a military man, an electrical engineer, and a child pornographer, a deviant. That's what he is. And then we have, and we're going over each of the 12 because I think they're worthy. Anyone who does this kind of conduct is worthy of being aired out. This guy worked for Big River Grill restaurant in Disney's Boardwalk. He was not a Disney employee. He preferred his victims 8 to 11 years of age. He's charged with 2 counts of promotion of child pornography, which is a second-degree felony, 1 count of possession of child pornography, which is a third-degree felony. Now, this is the strange thing about our law, and we need that changed. If you possess 1 to 9 pieces of child pornography, it's a third-degree felony. But it becomes a second-degree felony at 10 or more counts of child pornography. I think you're just as sick and you're just as deviant at 9 photographs as you are at 10 or 11. Then we have Thursek super sad. Today he's super sad, and we're super glad because he's locked up. He was in the Navy for 5 years. He's currently unemployed. He likes boy victims between the ages of 6 to 12. He's currently charged with 4 counts of child pornography, but we suspect more charges are on the way. And no one's left out this time around, it seems, as far as reputable communities and businesses. Here's a guy who works in the accounting department for Publix Bakery. We asked him when we went to serve the search warrant, do you know why we're here? A profound statement, because I've been downloading child pornography. We appreciate his honesty. He is charged with 100 counts of possession of child pornography. And he told us he was addicted. And he preferred, according to the pornography, the child porn that we saw, children 6 to 12 years of age. And here we have a Disney World employee, works at Animal Kingdom. He prefers children 8 to 11 years of age. He's charged with 60 counts of child porn, and every one of them are movies. There was no still pictures. And here's what he said. He actually has this setup, as you see next to the superintendent, with all of this elaborate technology. He says, I download everything. Computers are my life. I'd rather be on the computer than on a date. Well, Angel Maldonado, here's a news flash for you. There are no computers in the county jail. And from there, we intend to send you to state prison. Then there's Terry Drawdy. He was our only one that was a convicted felon before we interacted with him. He was chatting to a 15-year-old girl in Ohio where he groomed her into sending him photographs of her without any clothes. And he said, well, we talked about sex every day. He confessed. When we looked at his computer, we saw that, yes, he was seducing a child. He was engaged in unlawful communication with a child. And he was also charged with child pornography. Our detectives tell me that maybe the sickest, most deviant, most outrageous was James Baloney. At least that's how I pronounce his name in Polk County. He's self-employed as J.K. Carpet Care, so he's been in our homes around this county. He advertised and he was promoting this child pornography. He had sex toys and computers in the bedroom of a 3-year-old child. He had a child CPR mannequin in the house. He had child porn on between 10 and 14 different computers. He had several smartphones. In addition to that, he's been charged with currently 65 counts of child porn, but we have to go through all of his smartphones, all of his computers, and we anticipate certainly there'll be more charges. He preferred children who have been sexually abused, and the photographs of them between 2 months and 12 years of age, mainly girls. In 1984, he had a misdemeanor sexual abuse charge out of New York. I don't know how you have a misdemeanor sexual abuse charge. Ladies and gentlemen, it's important to focus on this guy. He may look like a normal person on the outside, but this person is a groomer. This person spends every day seeing how he can create a relationship to involve himself in a child's world, how he can create trust. He's not admitted to us that he's sexually abused any children yet, but he would if he could, if he hasn't. This arrest you may have seen in some of your news clips. This is Buck Johnson. Buck Johnson is someone that the Winter Haven Police Department and the Sheriff's Office work collectively because he was stalking children at bus stops. And then he was lewdly approaching them. We charged him with lewd exhibition, obscene material that he was displaying to the children, use of communications device, aggravated stalking, and possession of drugs. We've also discovered 2 counts of child porn on his devices. We arrested him on May the 27th, but we've wrapped him up in this operation. And how about a personal trainer from Planet Fitness? 3 counts of child porn. He had 18, count them, 18 different cell phones, 3 tablets. We also charged him with child abuse because there were drugs and guns and easy access of children in this house. But at this time, he's only charged with child abuse for the drugs and for the alcohol. The child porn, there's no indication that those children are in any of that child porn. Well, Felix Nunex is an interesting soul. He prefers children 2 to 12 years of age. He's charged with 20 counts of child porn. Now, he told our detectives this. I'm not making this up. If I'm lying, I'm dying. He said, I accidentally download child porn every day. Are you kidding me? Really? You accidentally download child porn every day. He said, well, you know, I download music and stuff. And this child porn is just there. Explain that to the judge. That's all I can say. This is the 12 from this roundup. As you can see, this is not our first operation. It won't be our last operation. My promise to the people that engage in child pornography or attacking our children, if we haven't arrested you yet, our promise to you is that we will. And I challenge other police chiefs and sheriffs around the nation, if you're not aggressively going after these people like we are in the state of Florida, it's one of the primary missions of the Florida Sheriff's Association to team up and go after these folks. You should be, because they're out there, they're on these devices, they're exchanging child porn, they are making child porn, and every one of these images we have, and every one of these clips we have, when that is shared again, that child is victimized again. So with that, the superintendent and I will open up for any questions you have.
Being that Juan Berrios probably to most of us is the most offensive because he dealt with children every day, describe to me some words you would use to describe him.
Well, you know, I don't think there are any adequate words because it appears at this point in the investigation he was living a dual life. He had no issues at school, was well thought of as a school teacher, had taught children for 42 years. But are we concerned? Are we worried? Do we want parents to tell us if their child has ever come home and said that he said something, intimated something, done something? Sure, certainly. And by the way, he's been a school teacher for 42 years. If he abused a child many, many years ago, the statute of limitations on a capital felony are still running. So if he abused a child in Massachusetts decades ago, he can be held accountable now. But he's a deviant. And someone like that is dangerous, because even if he is successful, and we hope he was successful at keeping that absolute horrific conduct at home, at what point in time does it leak over into the school system and his children? Like I said, we're thoroughly investigating that possibility. We see absolutely no piece of evidence, not even a hint at this point in the investigation that he ever brought that to the school or to the children. But the investigation's ongoing. And if somebody knows something we don't, we'd like to know it.
Sure. Just about every time we've covered one of these, and you have done many of them, it seems there's always a Disney employee or a theme park employee. Is that A, because of the proximity of Polk County to the theme parks and the high number of people that they employ, or are these people seeking out that employment because of the ready access to children? And is there any indication that they are using that advantage or employment to access children?
We've always suggested, and we don't know what the hiring practices are for the theme parks, but here's what we know for sure. We know that they employ thousands and thousands of people. Do I suspect for 1 second this is a trend at Disney or Universal? No, not at all. But here's what I know. What I know is they once asked a famous bank robber, "Why do you rob banks?" He said, "Well, that's where the money is." These people that are child predators or pedophiles, which is child lovers, love children. So you go to where children are. That's why back in the day, before we had big theme parks, we looked in public parks, Cub Scout groups, Boy Scout groups, Little League groups, dance groups for these folks that had an overt interest in children. In today's society, we've got the world that we carry around with us, and you can access children all day, every day here. Plus, if you are of that mindset, if you work at one of these locations, it gives you the opportunity to look for the weak, for the vulnerable. We see these child predators specifically grooming mothers in order to get to their children, moving in with mothers, showering them with gifts or money or supporting them when they're having tough economic times to get to the children. That's why we always give this warning out. So do I think there is a proclivity for Disney to encourage or ignore this conduct? Absolutely not. But when you employ thousands of people and there are millions of children that come there every day, if you have that deviant proclivity, why wouldn't you go to work there if you could get a job there?
Can you help me understand the difference? I mean, promoting and possession, were some of these guys making child porn?
None of these, at this point in the investigation, were making child porn, but that doesn't mean that statement will be so by the end of the investigation. But you can possess child pornography without advertising or sending and receiving it, okay? You can only receive it, you don't distribute it, you receive it, you keep it, and a lot of it is the technical application of the law when we talk about advertising, possession, promotion, distributing. But at the end of the day, don't be confused with the fact that we are, in addition to the charges, looking to identify the victims. I want to know who these babies are. I want to know who they are so we can rescue them from this environment. And we find children frequently that where there has been child pornography. Unfortunately, these children have been placed in this position, but I can't take these children's pictures for obvious reasons and put up here and say, do you know this child? But I would like to know who that child is, because that child's a victim. So we go through extraordinary measures to try to determine, did they make this child porn? And there's still the illusion that the old terminology of kiddie porn, well, this is just really a 15, 16, 17-year-old girl that's dressed up to look 25. That is a bad thought. There is no such thing as kiddie porn. To suggest that old terminology is used by some is gut-wrenching. But the reality of it is, they're out here searching for these children and making videos of these children. And for those who think it's just the young teenage girls dressing up to be older, it's not. We have video images of adults having sexual conduct with babies in diapers. This is the most horrific thing you can ever imagine in your entire life. In fact, you can't imagine it. Normal people can't imagine what my detectives have to see in order to bring these charges. These people are subhuman. They're scary people. It would be less horrific to see a graphic murder scene than to see what they possess and swap back and forth and make with mere children as young as diapers up to 2 and 3 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8.
Explain to me some of the anxiety you may feel thinking that Berrios was working with children in the age group he was sexually interested in.
What upsets me is not just Juan. I mean, the person who worked at Disney had that access. Every one of these people, like everyone else in society, had access to children. I would submit to you that at school with those children in a structured environment with other teachers and superintendents and our principals around, assistant principals, was probably the safest environment for him to interact with children professionally, because somebody's there to watch him all day. But once again, if he has this love for children, this pedophilia, pedophiles, if you dig deep into this, and I know you don't have time for a big history lesson or a, science lesson on these folks, they like to be around children anyway. But they may prefer blonde-headed little girls and never bother a brown-headed or a black-headed little girl. Or they may prefer little boys with blonde hair and never ever bother a girl or a boy that's over 6 or under 6. These people are screwed in wrong in their head. Their wires don't connect. And when they do, they've shorted out someplace along the line. And that's what makes them so dangerous. I think the principal told us what these others had enough sense not to say. They like it. We're friends. We treat them good. We love them. They love us. Those statements that principal said, even though he verbalized them, and that's enough just to go, brother, I don't believe I'd have said that. These others feel the same way. They just had enough sense not to say it.
Sheriff, the 3 men on the bottom who were previously arrested, were they arrested for similar charges?
Yes, I listed them out in the groups. Yes, sir. And we'll have all of that.
How do you catch most of these? Are they based on tips, or is it just, is there bait out there where, detectives are where that photo is going?
Well, we don't discuss our investigative techniques because they would no longer be effective if they were in every blog and on every news station and every newspaper. But we use very effective investigative techniques because these folks are not out here seeking to be aired out publicly. I can't explain to you how troubling it is. And the thing that troubles us, folks, now, I can't speak for the background investigations on anybody else, but the one that worked for us passed polygraphs, psychologicals, and backgrounds, and we specifically ask about those issues in the polygraphs and the psychologicals because we know they're going to be interacting with kids. So it tells you that if he's a good psychopath, he passes it all. If he says the right things and he has no conscience, he can pass it. But we hold him to a higher standard. And I certainly hope, even though he may not have as many charges as the others, he needs to go to prison for longer because he was in an area of public trust.
Sheriff, we heard that Maldonado had 2 children in his home. Is there an investigation into if he had any interaction with them? What's the status of that?
Yes, absolutely. There were children in some of these homes, and we do a comprehensive investigation, separate and apart, if there are children in the home or access to children. They don't have to be in the home. Did they babysit? Did they take care of the neighbor's kids? Do they have nieces or nephews that they keep, or they ever paid to babysit? So there is excruciating investigations that occur to chase down every one of these leads to make sure that the children were safe. And I can tell you, the weird world of all of this, the children in the home or the children they had access in the neighborhood may never, ever, ever have been groomed, touched, photographed, and they just go off in their other little deviant world here to do this. So they live separate lives, some of them.
I apologize for this before. How many charges or counts is Benny missing?
We'll get that to you. It's down here in this list, and his computers are still being gone through.
Okay.
Anything else? I do, in closing, want to say for the superintendent to be here today, she didn't have to be, but every time we've had a horrific event, she stood shoulder to shoulder with me to make sure we give the clear understanding to the community. It's not them or us, it's all us. We are the school system, they are the sheriff's office, and we all are the community. And we stand together with a clear message. We're coming after you with a vengeance if you're doing this. It's a promise. Okay, thank you very much.